Hi everyone, I'm Kat and welcome to my channel, Naturally Beautiful Girl. If you remember, there have been a lot of new launches in terms of makeup palettes in green and eco beauty, and so I wanted to go through and kind of give my final thoughts and opinions on these palettes. Who do I think they're good for? What do I like? What do I not like about them? Which ones would I recommend? And then I've also decided to go through and also declutter a couple of palettes as well. So I will talk to you about some eyeshadow palettes that I am going to be getting rid of because I currently have too many in my collection and I don't reach for some of them and I don't really see that changing in the future. So I'm going to talk about which ones I'm going to be decluttering, why I'm getting rid of those. So it's just kind of like my final thoughts on these palettes. So if you're interested in hearing my thoughts on the Beauty Counter Romantic palette, the PYT Beauty No BS palette, the Aether Beauty Rose Quartz eyeshadow palette, which matches me today, and the little dusty Honest Beauty, what is it called? Get It Together eyeshadow palette. Then be sure to stay tuned. Okay, so first off, I'm going to talk about, I think, these two together first, because these are both available at Credo Beauty. You can shop them either on the Credo Beauty website or in person if you have a Credo Beauty nearby you. This is a $28 eyeshadow palette. It has this kind of rubberized packaging, very NARS-esque. Has a huge mirror that I'm not going to blind you with, and then it has 8 eyeshadow shades in it. This whole top row up here are all matte shades, and then this whole bottom row down here are all shimmer shades. It's flipped because I have it upside down. I've been using it on and off now. I got this, I believe, back in like August and it's now October. So definitely I've had this for quite a while because I remember using it on my birthday and taking it with me in New York City. I traveled with it that time because I was like, well, it has a large mirror. It's, you know, kind of all together, but it's not a huge palette. And so I thought it would make a really good traveling palette. And I think that still stands about this palette, but here's my thing. I've been trying a lot of eyeshadow palettes. This guy, I just don't reach for because I don't like it. Out of the 4 that I've tried, this is probably the one that I reach for the least. And I have a few reasons why. First of all, the shimmers I don't think are anything to write home about. I think there are a lot better shimmers out there, definitely in these other palettes, and also in terms of single shadows. Shimmers like the Mother Bear's Handmade shimmers, like these just don't compete with those. Also, I don't think the mattes are that pigmented. I think they're a little bit dusty. I think they're a little bit chalky. The more that I use it, the less that I like it. Like these 2 shades, which should be crease shades, I have a really hard time getting built up on my eyes. I just don't see it being that great of a palette. And I think it's very limited too because I'm having issues building up the pigmentation. I don't think it'll work well for a lot of skin tones because I am super fair. So if I can't see eyeshadows showing up on my skin tone, then I think it's going to be really difficult for someone with a deeper skin tone to use this eyeshadow palette. And honestly, here's the thing too with this eyeshadow palette is that the eyeshadow palettes I look at them and they excite me. And this one just doesn't excite me. When I'm looking at the colors, it just doesn't excite me. The only shadow I find really interesting is like this one, this kind of raspberry one over here. This guy here, this kind of olivey one, I'd hoped would be more olive on my eyes. It's not as olive as I was hoping. Overall, I don't think it's really worth it. I think there are better eyeshadow palettes out there than this one. It is kind of one of the more affordable ones in the set of 4 that I tried out, but I don't think it's worth it. I would pass on this eyeshadow palette. I know that some people really like it. I know that Reagan likes this eyeshadow palette, so it depends on what you're looking for though, but if you're looking for really high performance eyeshadows, really high quality in terms of pigmentation, in terms of just impact, I don't think this is it. It's for if you want very natural looking eyeshadow looks, just not that intense. And I know they call it a day to night palette, but I just disagree with that term because to me, it's a very daytime palette. It takes so much work for me to get these eyeshadows towards a nighttime, towards a more intense eyeshadow look. So for me, I would pass on this one personally. So I'm gonna move to the Aether Beauty Rose Quartz eyeshadow palette. I have to say, in my review of this one, I was critical of it not having a mirror, and especially for the price of it. Here's one thing that you guys don't see, is the owner and founder of Aether Beauty reached out to me, and we were talking on DMs on Instagram. She watched my review. She talked to me and we were talking about like the things about like why the price is what it is. And we were talking about things like ingredients. Basically, the quality of the ingredients in this one are better than the quality of ingredients in this one. So I really appreciate that. I appreciate that she took the time to explain to me like why things were what they were and all of that, and not many brands will do that. And so that gave me a lot of respect just for the Aether Beauty brand in general, that the owner was willing to take the time and have a conversation, have a dialogue with me, and I really appreciate that. So I wanted to let you know that that happened, and I really appreciate that. And I've come to appreciate more why the price is what it is in this palette, is I guess what I'm saying. And also, honestly, the more that I've used this palette, the more I've liked the palette. So with this one, the more I've used the palette, the less I've liked it. This one, the more I've used it, the more I've liked it. And I found myself reaching for this palette very often. And it was very interesting because I got a comment recently that was like, your eye look is so natural. What palette did you use? And it was really funny for me to say this one. Because originally I was saying, I don't think you can get very many natural eyeshadow looks. I don't think you can get very many neutral looks with this palette, but you definitely can. And especially if you stay over on this side of the palette, like you can get really quick, really easy, really natural eye looks. I am wearing this palette today on my eyes. I really have come to like it. I really recommend it. And honestly, it's just beautiful. And when I open this palette, I feel excited, I feel inspired, I feel ready to do my eye makeup. And I really like that. And I think that because I actually feel inspired by this palette, it helps me with creating eyeshadow looks. The eyeshadows are all very pigmented. The metallics are very metallic. The shimmers are very shimmery. Like you can see on my lid, like how much my eyeshadow on my lid is like reflecting the light, how metallic it is. I can see it in the monitor. Hopefully it's coming across to you as well. And that is this shade right here on the palette. This is the one I have on my eyelids today. Even with the matte shades in this palette, they're a little dusty. Like when you dip your brush into them, you definitely get some kickback. But here's the thing, you get pigmentation on your eyes. Whereas with the shadows in this one, it doesn't happen with the mattes. This one, the mattes definitely give you that pigmentation. And I really like this for that reason. So if you've been on the fence about this palette, I think it's worth it, but you really do, once again, you have to look at these shades and say, are these shades that I'm going to use? It's not as wearable as like a brown neutrals palette. I still stand by that, but it is a fun palette, and I think you can make it a little bit more toned down and neutral depending on what colors you use in the palette, but it definitely is a palette that is going to pack a punch. So if you are looking for that, definitely worth the while. And I've heard rumblings that there are going to be some more palettes coming out soon from Aether Beauty, and honestly, I'm really excited to see what is coming next from the brand. This was an amazing start, amazing kickoff for the brand, and I think we have some really awesome products to look forward to in the future. Also, this is vegan and cruelty-free as well. And the one from PYT Beauty is cruelty-free but not vegan. I believe it uses carmine. I think that's the reason why this one's not vegan. And this palette is $58, so it is expensive, but honestly, that $30 does a lot between these two palettes, like in terms of quality, in terms of pigmentation, in terms of blending. I still think it's pricey. I would really have liked to have seen it like $50, $45. I feel like that price would match the palette. You do get 12 eyeshadows in it, so you do get more eyeshadows than you do in the other one for more, but I don't know. I feel like the $45 to $50 price range would have been a little bit easier to swallow for this palette, but I do think it is very high quality. I really like it, and I use it a lot. So just putting that out there. So I'm gonna move on next to the Beauty Counter Romantic Eyeshadow Palette. I've said this a million times, I'm not a Beauty Counter consultant. I was just really curious and I wanted to try out some of their products, and I picked up this eyeshadow palette to try out. So it also has a huge mirror, which you can remove. So I found out that you can remove it so that the whole packaging can be recyclable. It has 9 shades in it. I have been reaching for this one more than I thought I would. It's interesting how with more and more time, I definitely reach for the Aether one a lot, and I reach for this one from Beauty Counter a lot. And I know Beauty Counter came out with some more eyeshadow palettes, so those look interesting. Maybe I'll check those out in the future. I still would really like to get my hands on the warm toned Beauty Counter eyeshadow palettes. Still have that kind of on my like wish list. But I do like this one. I have a couple more thoughts on this. I really wish there was another transition shade in this palette. Like this palette desperately needs another transition shade rather than just Brulee. I like Brulee, but it needs another transition shade. Whereas like this one from Aether Beauty definitely has this shade over here that can be used as a transition shade. This one is matte as well, can be used, and then this light grade too. So there's some options. Whereas in the Beauty Counter Romantic, there is just Brulee. I think they could have replaced Flush with another transition shade. It's a little bit too lilac-y, too purple. I never reach for it. We talked about that in my last video. I finally figured out how to use Moon Dust. I like it as an inner corner highlight and then like blended up into like the inner third of my eyelid. That looks good. So if you have one of these, that was my recommendation of how to use that shade Moon Dust. I finally used it like that and was like, aha. I finally like this. Like this is finally good. I'm finally happy with it. I don't know. I've been into these like pink eyeshadows, which I'm normally not a cool toned eyeshadow person, but I just have been loving it. And I think these shades are all quite wearable with the exclusion of Flush. Definitely a solid eyeshadow palette. I reach for this one a ton as well. The shadows are pigmented, blend well, the metallics are metallic. I mean, there's some, I'll link to my other video, but there's some that are a little bit more metallic, a little bit more buttery than other ones, but overall definitely a solid palette. And the Beauty Counter eyeshadow palette is $50. Here's what I would say. I would pick one. I would pick either the Rose Quartz or the Beauty Counter. I still think the Beauty Counter is more wearable because these both have very pinky tone. They have a lot of pinker toned eyeshadows. So I think I would pick one. If you want something very wearable, I would go with this one. If you want something that's a little bit more fun, it's got some punches, pops of color, I would go with the Aether Beauty Rose Quartz. So, you know, if you're not a beauty YouTuber, I don't think you need both. I would just go with one or the other. They're both very good and similar in price point. So the final one I'm going to talk about is the Honest Beauty Get It Together eyeshadow palette. This one is $20. And I like this one, but I don't reach for it quite as much as some of these other ones. I really have fallen in love with the Aether Beauty and the Beauty Counter eyeshadow palettes, but this one is definitely solid. The reasons why I don't reach for this one quite as much is these two shades right here I don't love as much. Every time I use them, I'm just not a huge fan of the shades. I really like this row right here. Like this is definitely my favorite row in the palette. I like this matte brown. I like this matte purple. This shade right here is great. You can use it with either the purple or this one. This one is like the most intense glitter ever. If you want like a glitter eyeshadow that's pressed, this is beautiful, but it's like intense. If you do not like intense eyeshadows, you might want to pass on this one. So like these two shades right here are not my favorite. I like the matte brown. That's a great color to have. This purple is great. It's kind of matte, but has like some shimmer in it. And then I love that this palette has a matte black and a matte white and in huge pans. Overall on this one, I think this is, especially if you are on a budget and you don't want to be paying the price of the Beauty Counter or the Aether Beauty, this is definitely a solid palette. I would 100% go for this one over the PYT No BS eyeshadow palette. I think the shadows perform better. I think they're more pigmented and it's more affordable. I like that this has a mixture too of warm and cool shadows. So if you want both warm and cool, this one has definitely got it all in one place. And I think it's just a very friendly eyeshadow palette, and it comes with a card that gives you some eyeshadow look ideas. So if you're new or you're a beginner, it kind of comes with like a little tutorial of what you can do to make this eyeshadow palette work for you. My overall thoughts on the eyeshadow palettes. I feel like you can tell the price of the Beauty Counter and the Aether Beauty just in terms of quality. Out of the two more affordable ones, I would just go for the Honest Beauty over the PYT. I think there's more pigmentation there, which is, you know, that's important. You want pigmentation with your eyeshadows. I think that's there. And it's more affordable in the first place, and it's easier to get your hands on because you can get it from Target.com. Maybe Target in stores. I haven't seen it in my Target, but you might be able to find it in yours. My Target's a little small, so it doesn't have everything there all the time. And I think you get a good selection of colors, and I really like having a matte white and a matte black. And you have a variety of shades that you can use as transition shades too, and they actually show up because the PYT Beauty has a number of transition shades. They just don't show up because they're not that pigmented. Overall, I'm just so excited that there are so many new eyeshadow palettes in Green and Eco Beauty, because I'm always seeing the ones in conventional beauty and feeling envious, and now I finally don't feel envious of those. I see the ones we have and I'm excited. I love them. I think they're really performing well. Let me know what you guys think. Let me know if you've checked any of these out, if you're going to purchase any of these. So if I had to rank the eyeshadow palettes, honestly, I would probably rank this one the highest. I really like this one. If I were to rank these two, I almost rank this one number 2 just because you have more variety, you have more transition shades. You can go very warm toned, you can do very cool tones. So I would say this is a number 2. This would be number 3 just because it only has one transition shade. And then of course, this one is just number 4. Okay, so now I'm going to quickly talk about 2 eyeshadow palettes that I am going to be decluttering. And the first one is this one from Lily Lolo. This is the Filthy Rich palette. I got this one quite a while ago, and I got it because there weren't many eyeshadow palettes in Nontoxic Beauty. And so when I saw this one and I saw the colors of it, it reminded me of my Naked palette, and I purchased it, but I honestly have never liked this palette. And so I am just going to get rid of it. It has been knocking around my collection. I keep meaning to declutter it, but I haven't. I've done a video about this. I will link it. But honestly, I just don't think the shadows are that pigmented. There are just way better eyeshadow palettes out there in the market now, so definitely not one of my favorites. The shadows are like too hard, too pressed in the pan. It's really hard to get any pigmentation, to get any color. I haven't tried any other Lily Lolo eyeshadow palettes out, but honestly, this one was just not good, and I have no desire to try any more out. I saw that they're coming out with another one, and I was like, okay, like I just don't want to try you out, because I have 3 in front of me that are just so much better than this one. Another eyeshadow palette that I am going to declutter is this one here from Found. This is the Blush 20 eyeshadow palette. I have the New 10. New 10 is not leaving my collection because I love that one. But I think this one is the lesser of the 2. I know the reason why I don't like this one is a lot of the shades in this one come off very similar in tone to me. Even though they look different in the pan, when I actually get them on my eyes, a lot of these shades, I can't tell the difference when I get them on. And so honestly, for that reason, it's just not worth having in my collection. And now I have things like the Beauty Counter Romantic Eyeshadow Palette, the Aether Beauty Rose Quartz Palette, that are very cool and pink toned that I just like a lot better than this one. So this one is going to be leaving my collection, sadly. But I'm keeping the New 10. The New 10 100% has my stamp of approval. It is an amazing eyeshadow palette. So this is the New 10 eyeshadow palette, which is not leaving my collection. And a number of you have asked my opinion on this one versus the Honest Beauty. Honestly, they're very similar to me. I don't think you need both necessarily in your collection because they both are quite pigmented. The metallics are quite metallic. They're well performing. I would think about what colors and what shades you're most likely to reach for and pick that way. This one, I mean, this one does have like a more of an inner corner highlight shade, so that definitely gives it bonus points in terms of that in the palette. I really like this one. I travel with it a lot. It's a good travel palette. I actually used this palette to do my makeup at my sister-in-law's wedding. I would just say they're both great. Whichever one interests me more, I like them both. I don't think I could really pick which one is better. I just like them both. So I hope you found this video useful. If you did, be sure to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. Also check out my Instagram. I'll have my handle down below. I'm at naturallybeautifulgirl. And once again, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye!